The road into the West Fjords looked like a ribbon dropped by a careless hand. It curved between dark slopes and pale patches of snow that refused to melt even in late summer. Harper drove slowly, the rental car humming as if afraid to disturb the quiet. She had flown into Reykjavik with 2 cameras, 3 batteries, and a list of places other photographers said could not be missed. Dynjandi sat at the top of her list like a crown. She had circled it in her notebook and drawn a box around the circle for emphasis. By the time the fjord opened below and the wind pushed against her jacket, the sun had lowered to an angle that turned the water to copper. She parked near the trail and saw an old stone bridge crossing a stream. A newer bridge stood nearby, safe and modern, but the old arch caught her attention. Every stone leaned on the next, built with patience. She wondered how long it had stood there. The air smelled of wet rock and grass. The sound of the waterfall was a steady breath beyond the hill. Harper lifted her camera. Light softened the edges of the stones and cast a long shadow along the arch. She moved to different spots, but nothing felt right. "You are chasing it," a voice said. She lowered the camera. A man stood at the far end of the bridge. She had not heard him arrive. His clothes were simple, a dark sweater and trousers worn from weather. His hair was the color of straw in the rain, and his eyes were a pale blue like the morning sky. He stood in the shade. "Chasing what?" she asked. "The line between light and not light," he said. "It moves fast here. The mountain pushes it along." She smiled. "I thought I was losing my touch." "Or your patience," he said. "Try from the middle of the arch. Kneel. Keep the horizon high. Let the stream be your subject, and the stones be your frame." She walked to the middle, knelt, and looked through the viewfinder. The stream was a white ribbon between dark banks, the bridge a curve that framed it. She took a few shots. "Better," he said. She checked the screen. He was right. She looked up to thank him, but he had stepped back deeper into the shade. "Do you cross?" she asked. "Or do you stay on one side forever?" "I have time to live on both sides," he said. Something about the way he said time made her study him again. He did not fidget or look away. He simply watched the light move over the stones. "Tourist season is almost over," he said. "You will have the falls to yourself." "That is why I came now," Harper said. "I am Harper." "Aaron," he replied. "Will you show me the best spots?" "I will tell you," he said. "If I step into the light, my advice will turn false. Some places are better explained than walked." The cloud came as he said it would. The waterfall glowed, then sharpened. Harper took several shots, then lowered the camera and simply watched. "You knew that would happen," she said. "I have watched this place," he said. "And always from the shade?" she asked. "Are you part owl?" He smiled. "No, I am only careful." A cold wind came down the ravine. She stepped closer to the wall without thinking. He stepped back deeper into shadow, as if there was a line he could not cross. "I am going to the falls next," she said. "Is there a better path? A sheep trail to the right? It is steep and the stones are loose. If you go alone, go slow. If you go with someone, do not look back." "Why not?" she asked. "They might not be there," he said. She hesitated. "That is a strange thing to say." "It is a true thing for a traveller," he said. "Will I see you here again?" "I am here. If you come in the evening, you will find me." She left for the falls, following his advice. The sheep trail was steep, the view worth it. She photographed the layers of Dynjandi until the light began to fade. On the way back, she thought of the man in the shade and decided to return the next evening. At her guest house, she looked through her photos. In several frames, a figure stood in the far shade by the wall. When she zoomed in, his features blurred as if the light refused to hold them. Still, his posture was clear. She closed the laptop. Some places are better explained than walked. The thought stayed with her as she fell asleep, dreaming of water under stone. The next day moved slowly, the way days sometimes do when you are waiting for a single hour. Harper wandered the harbour in the morning, drinking coffee that tasted faintly of salt. Fishing boats came and went, nets hung to dry, and gulls called in sharp voices overhead. She checked her camera gear twice before lunch, once out of habit and once out of impatience. By late afternoon, the weather had settled into a bright calm. Thin clouds drifted, promising the kind of light that could change a scene in a heartbeat. She drove back to the Westfjords with the same quiet hum from the rental car, the road winding through open stretches of land where sheep grazed close to the roadside. When the bridge came into view, it looked exactly as it had the day before. Same curve, same stones leaning on each other like old friends. Aaron was there, standing in the same place as if he had never left. "You came back," he said. "I wanted to see if the clouds would do their trick again," Harper replied. "They will, now," he said. "They always do if you wait." She crossed halfway and stood where he had told her before. The stream below was steady, carrying its own small voice under the sound of the waterfall in the distance. She adjusted her settings, watching the shadows stretch. "Do you live nearby?" she asked. "I live here," he said simply. "Here, as in this valley. Here, as in this bridge." He replied, his tone light, but the words stayed with her. "You mean you work here?" "I mean I am bound here," he said. Harper lowered the camera. "Bound how?" He looked past her to where the sun was touching the slope. "Long ago, I stepped into the water to save a man who had fallen in during a storm. It was not my place to interfere with his fate. My people, they did not approve." "Your people," she repeated. "You would call them light elves," he said. "We live in places where shadow and sun meet, but we keep to our own kind. I broke that rule, so I was given this place to stand for as long as the curse holds." Harper tried to read his expression, but his eyes were fixed on the water. "And how long is that? Until someone chooses to give up what they value most for my freedom." He said it without looking at her, as if he had said it many times before. "That sounds like a fairy tale," Harper said. "All curses do," he replied. The cloud moved over the sun again, and the waterfall came alive in a white shimmer. Harper lifted the camera, caught the moment, then lowered it again. Her mind was still on his words. "What if no one makes that choice?" she asked. "Then I keep the bridge company, Joe," he said. "And the bridge keeps me company." She laughed softly. "You make it sound peaceful." "It can be, but peace is not freedom." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of cold water and moss. Harper pulled her jacket tighter. She wanted to ask more about his world, about the curse, but something in the way he stood told her not to push. Instead, she took more photos, capturing the way the light bent around the stones. When the sun dipped lower, she stepped back from the center of the arch. "I will be here again tomorrow," she said. "I will be here," he answered. Driving back, Harper thought about his story. It was impossible, and yet she had not seen him step into the light, even once. That night she sat in her guest house room and went through the day's photos. In each frame, where Aaron appeared, the shadow covered him completely, even when the light should have reached the spot where he stood. She closed the laptop, her chest tight, with a feeling she could not name. Harper woke early, the sound of gulls pulling her out of sleep. The day was bright, and the sky clear enough to see the far line where the sea met the mountains. She walked to the harbour for coffee, but her mind was already on the bridge. By midday, she had packed her gear and driven back to the West Fjords. The road felt shorter now, as if the distance had learned her rhythm. She passed the same small houses, the same stretches of open land. But this time she noticed the details, the way the wind bent the grass in silver waves, the sparkle of water in hidden streams. Aaron was there when she arrived, leaning against the low wall in the same quiet way. "You are early," he said. "I wanted to see the bridge in different light," Harper replied. He nodded. "It changes with the hour, just as people do." They stood together without speaking for a while. She took photos from different angles, and Aaron pointed out how the stones seemed to shift color when the clouds passed. He never stepped into the sunlight. "Tell me more about the curse," she said finally. He was silent for a moment. "Light elves do not often interfere in human lives. We watch, we sometimes guide, but we do not step in. That night during the storm, the man would have drowned. I could have turned away. I did not. I pulled him from the water. And for that you were punished. For breaking the balance," Aaron said. "The rules are older than I am. I was bound to the bridge between shadow and sun until someone makes the choice that frees me." "The choice of giving up what they value most," she said. "Yes, and not for reward, but for me alone." Harper studied him. "Has anyone ever tried?" "Once," he said quietly. "A woman long ago offered her voice the only thing she believed made her worth loving. I refused. I could not take it from her. That was the first time I understood the cruelty of the curse." The wind moved between them, cool and sharp. Harper thought of her cameras, of the way she saw the world through a lens. What would it mean to give that up? Would she still be herself? "Why tell me this?" she asked. "Because you have already begun to see the bridge as more than stone," he said. "And once you see it that way, the choice begins to form in you." They were both quiet for a long time. She took more photos, trying to steady her hands. When the light began to soften, she asked, "What happens if I choose? You would lose what you gave, and I would be free to walk away from here. We would never see each other again." The words sat heavy in her chest. As she drove back that evening, the images she had taken seemed sharper than usual, as if the bridge had shifted in her mind from a subject to a question. That night, she dreamed of water rushing under her feet, of Aaron standing at the edge of the light, watching her without moving. She woke before dawn, her heart still caught between wanting to see him free and not wanting to lose him at all. Harper left before breakfast. The morning air was cold enough to sting her cheeks, but the sky was clear. She drove with a steady hand, feeling the pull of the bridge like a thread tied to her chest. When she reached it, Aaron was already there, standing exactly as before, his shadow stretched behind him. "You came early, Char," he said. "I could not sleep, but," she replied. They stood in silence for a while. Harper watched the sunlight touch the far stones of the bridge. "How would it happen?" she asked. "If I decided." "You would step into the light at the center of the arch," he said. "I would take from you what you offered. You would feel it leave as if it had never been yours. And then I would walk away. And that is it. That is it." She looked down at her hands at the camera strap wound around her fingers. "If I gave up my sight, I could never take another photograph." "You would see the world in a different way," Aaron said. "But you would lose the way you see now." The thought made her chest tighten. Photography was more than work. It was how she made sense of the world. But the idea of him bound here forever waiting for a choice no one might make was worse in a way she could not explain. "Would you want me to?" she asked. "I would never ask," he said, "but I would not refuse." The cloud moved over the sun, and the waterfall beyond glowed. Harper lifted her camera, but then lowered it again. She stepped forward into the center of the bridge, into the light. "Are you sure?" Aaron asked. "No," she said, "but I am here." He stepped forward for the first time since she had met him. The sunlight touched his face, and for a moment she saw him clearly. Not just the pale eyes and straw-colored hair, but the faint, unearthly glow that came from within. He reached out and placed his hand over hers. Warmth spread through her, then a strange emptiness. The shapes and colors around her blurred, softened, until she could no longer see them sharply. She blinked, but it did not change. "It is done," Aaron said. His voice was gentle. She let out a shaky breath. "I cannot see you anymore." "But I see you," he said, "and I will carry that." He stepped past her, walking toward the far side of the bridge. She turned her head, trying to follow the sound of his footsteps, but soon they faded into the wind. The bridge was silent. The light felt different now, softer, without edges. She traced the stone under her fingers and found her way back to the road. Harper returned to the guest house, slowly following the road, by memory more than sight. Shapes were still there. The outline of mountains, the shine of the sea, but the details were gone, as if the world had been painted in soft strokes. She set her camera bag on the table, though she knew she would never use it again. Still, habit made her take out the memory card and slide it into her laptop. She could not see the images clearly, but she could remember each shot. It took her hours to sort through them. Sometimes she leaned close to the screen, trying to catch the colors. Sometimes she sat back, listening to the wind at the window. Near the end of the files, she found the last photo she had taken before stepping into the light. It was the bridge, framed by the arch of stone, the stream below, catching the sun. And in the shadow at the far side stood Aaron. He was clearer than he had ever been in any picture. Every line of his face sharp, the faint glow of him reaching past the darkness. His eyes were turned toward her as if he knew the lens would hold him there even when she could not. She touched the screen. She could not see all of it, but she felt the shape of him in her mind. That night she printed the photograph in the guest house's small back room. When the paper slid out warm from the printer, she held it in both hands. It was the last image she would ever make. She pinned it above her bed so it would be the first thing she reached for each morning. And sometimes when the wind was just right and the air smelled of wet stone, she thought she could hear water running under the bridge and footsteps fading into the distance.